Morning, everybody. I am Jonathan, and I'm chairing this panel. And you're very welcome in the room and very welcome online. I'm advised I can just stand wherever I want. I don't have to be behind here, so I'm going to stand here. So the title of the session is Beyond Writing, and there are officially 4 presentations. One of us in the room, that's me, and then Yang online and Amanda online and Manfath online, but we think Manfath isn't here yet. So there's 3 of us here at the moment. So hopefully there'll be 4 of us by the end of the session. Okay. I'm scheduled to start, so I'll take the first one. We'll do the usual thing. We'll have the 4 presentations, hopefully 4, and then we'll take any responses that you may have at the end. So the title of this is, it's not Encountering Pete's. That was yesterday's. Okay, let's start again. The title of this one is When Writing Ends. I open with the abstract and the title I wrote and submitted in May. When Writing Ends. I have recently completed writing a book. Writing it occupied my waking and dreaming lives alongside other writing and other commitments for more than 6 years. For better or worse, whatever it is or will become, when it's released into the wild, the book is done. I'm both happy and sad. It is both satisfying and a loss. I've been wondering what next, what follows, what comes after. It is familiar, this ambivalent wondering. It happened when Ken Gale and I finished our doctoral thesis, and again when the solo book before this one was done. And in this latest book, I speculate that it could be my last, but I now realise I was being dramatic. Laurel Richardson has just published her latest book, which she says is her final one, at 90. Bronwyn Davis and Jane Speedy finished their second co-authored volume earlier this year. Both Bronwyn and Jane are many years into their apparent retirements. Ken Gale is cracking on with a new book too. He's very ancient. So this paper reaches into the grief and doubt, the possibilities, the sense of life's continuous motion, the sense that there is always more, and asks what else, what next when writing ends. That was the abstract. I turned against this title and abstract as soon as I submitted it. When writing ends. I turned against its finality and continuing drama, against its attention-seeking appeal to melancholy, against its assumptions about time, against its assumptions about writing. After I'd sent them to the conference, I read both title and abstract to a friend who responded, "Nice," and then added, "First world problem, but nice." The Guardian reports how the residents of Kiev risked air raids to hold and attend a literary festival early last month. Over 700 libraries were damaged or destroyed in the first 3 years of the war, but Ukrainian literature has nevertheless flourished. Literature, The Guardian's editorial continues, is not only, quote, a victim of war, it's an instrument of survival, resistance, witnessing, and refuge, end quote. In the city of Nyala in Darfur, Sudan, where a civil war has raged since 2023 with many libraries destroyed, a Nyala resident has opened a library in his own home as a place for his neighbourhood to find solace. In Gaza, in Myanmar and elsewhere, poets and writers have been targeted, silenced and killed. Yet, and because, the work of poets, writers, artists and musicians bears witness, speaks to what can't be photographed or filmed, connects with others beyond those places. It imagines a different future. Writing, art making of all kinds matters. This is not a claim for any one person's writing, certainly not for mine, but for the practice, for the movement of writing, for its potential effects, for what it can do, how it can shape, for how it can be part of what might make a difference. I am semi-retiring from my position at Edinburgh early next year. The last time we saw our daughter, Holly, a month or so ago, she asked me what I'm thinking I will do with the additional time, apart from her mum, Tess, and me getting to hang out more often than we can now with Holly and her partner and our 8-month-old grandson, Sebastian. It was the prospect of baby Sebi's arrival that prompted me to take the decision to step back from some of what I do. I responded to Holly's inquiry by saying, well, I'm thinking about another book, but I'm also thinking a bit about applying for a master's in creative writing. And I then told her that I hadn't yet mentioned the latter, doing the master's, to Tess. Tess would have something to say about that. Holly said, you don't have to keep working, Dad. There are other things than writing. And the following week, she sent me a photo of a sign for the croquet club, local to them in southeast London, where we will likely move sooner rather than later. The photo came with a question, how about this for your semi-retirement, Dad? Maybe croquet will appeal. I have played the game and it's good fun, if also vindictive. Or maybe I'll take cookery lessons or polish my French or something else that stretches me into new or neglected territory. There is always more and time is short. But I think that writing is under my skin. It's become my way of listening, of noticing, of orienting. It's a practice of paying attention, of witnessing, of acknowledging. It's exercise, something the body asks me to do, something it tells me it needs to keep going for as long as it can, even if only for me, even if only for the reader or listener in my imagination, even if only for the sense of writing's community. It's communing, both human and more than human. Even if it changes nothing, or even if any effect it has is one I will never see. A river needs countless, imperceptible drops of water to be a river. Writing is about being part of something, in something, moving and flowing with it. I turned against when writing ends because it suggests writing starts and stops, whereas writing, like music, like all arts making, is more like a movement, a rush that we plunge into and perhaps sometimes step out of. It's a practice that may involve holding onto the roots of a tree by the riverside to rest a while before, when the forces that we are align, we let go again. I'm against that title, When Writing Ends, also because it assumes that time, with its beginnings and endings, its segmentations and order, is self-evidently linear and teleological, that it is, in queer theorist Elizabeth Freeman's term, chrononormative, state-sponsored, culturally inscribed, neoliberal, regulated. Potawatomi activist scholar Kyle Wyatt argues instead for a time that spirals, for an Anishinaabe perspective on intergenerational time, this is a quote, a perspective in which it makes sense to consider ourselves as living alongside future and past relatives simultaneously as we walk through life. End quote. The book that is on its way is about writing and the everyday. I wrote it in cafes like the one I'm in now, this too hot late June Friday morning in Edinburgh. Always, but not only in cafes. Always, but not only with coffee. Pen texts me to say that it's cooler today than yesterday where he is in Cornwall. For now. A baby behind me expresses something that may be joy, a cry that's not a cry. holding food that it likes perhaps, or a favourite toy in its hand, or simply because it can. I choose not to look round. At the end of August, the book on writing the everyday will take a particular shape and form, will have a particular material presence, that's true. Assignments and dissertations, theses, articles and books appear, they must sometimes. Chrononormative time requires it. Also, though, the book that is on its way is not on its way, nor is it writing that has ended. It is already here, has in a sense always been here. And it's written with all the collaborators, more human and more than human, present and absent, whom I encountered during those times when I was able to let go of the tree roots and was carried away by the writing river's current. It is written, perhaps especially, with and for baby Sebi, who may never know this, and who somehow found me along the way. Thank you. All right. So our second presentation is from Yang. Hello, Yang. Welcome.
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
We can. Go
Yeah.
ahead whenever you're ready.
All right. It's really lovely to share my writing with you guys, and it's my first time, so I'm just gonna go with it. The names engraved on the tombstone stand upright and orderly, like knights guarding their princess day and night. They line up like soldiers arranged in military hierarchy, one place for each, no room for disorder. This year, instead of my big sister, I drove my family to visit my late grandma on Qingming Festival, a Chinese tomb sweeping day. As the youngest, I took on the task of sweeping her grave. After cleaning the dust, I placed the yellow chrysanthemums, a flower traditionally associated with mourning in Chinese culture, in front of the tombstone. The grave is shared by my grandma, whom I grew up with, and my grandfather, whom I never met. Their names are carved side by side, fixed in stone, joined in a lineage that continues beyond death. However, I doubt that engraved names, presented in such a formal gesture, can represent my grandma. In fact, they only produce strangeness, distancing us even further. I never called her by her name for start. She was always grandma. The inscription is shaped upright and rigid, while she, in my memory, was always a slightly hunched small old woman. Beneath their names, ours appear in order: son, daughter-in-law, first granddaughter, second granddaughter. No one's name should be left alone on their tombstone, where the concept of family has become concrete, grounded, and transcendent. No matter how fragmented the family may have been in life, their names are engraved together after death. We bowed our heads 3 times toward the tombstone. My father, her son, spoke aloud to his parents, saying, "Here I am, Dad and Mom. I've come to see you." His voice lingered in the air, searching for its destination. The ritual assumes a continuity between the living and the dead, as if the dead remain available to be addressed, to receive words, and to respond in ways we just cannot hear. As for me, I never actually speak, not because I like words, but because I like a voice. My grandma only spoke in a dialect, the one I picked up from her when I was little. It was in that dialect with its particular tones that I caught her, that I existed in relation to her, and she kept alive in relation to me. As time went by, the voice of that particular speech gradually faded away within my body, even before I noticed. I opened my mouth, yet no proper sound came out. After the ritual, we walked to my maternal grandmother's tombstone nearby. It was cleaner, recently visited. When I bent down to place flowers on the black marble, I noticed my name engraved directly after my birth parent's name. A wave of anger rose in me. How come my name is still there? I asked my mother, louder than I intended. I've asked you to rearrange it, haven't I? The silence of the cemetery was broken in a way that felt out of place. This is a space that permits grief, quiet sorrow, but not anger. My family was visibly shocked. Issues like this should never be touched or voiced. From their traditions, voicing is never an action for fighting or defending. Instead, it only brings chaos and disorder, putting family at risks. I don't know, my mom replied. Her answer was familiar, not a refusal, not an acknowledgement, but something in between. A way of speaking that keeps my calling suspended. In that suspension, nothing needs to be decided, nothing needs to change. I repeated my request to place my name in a right spot. The issue is not only spatial, it concerns belonging, how I am placed within the family and how that placement becomes fixed in stone. I then called my bio-father, who had arranged the names on the tombstone in the first place. As the only son in his family, he naturally holds authority over such matters. However, when I made my request, he responded by saying he needed to consult his eldest sister, namely my mom. The decision moved away from me, relocated into a broader family structure. Personal names never stay personal. A tombstone carries sentimental value, a site where the living and the dead reunite. However, it functions more than remembrance. It is a material technology of governance, encoding lineage, hierarchy, and legitimacy by mapping out kinship relationships. Both naming and the order of the names are neither neutral nor personal. Instead, they reflect and produce a particular patrilineal logic in which surname reveal bloodline. Bloodline defines legitimacy. Legitimacy confers ownership. Therefore, to be placed next to certain names or beneath them is to be positioned in a system of recognition that extends beyond the individual. My anger comes from a misalignment between the symbolic order and lived experience. I was raised by one father, yet inscribed under another. The tombstone affirms biological connections while erasing relational reality for me. What I'm asking to change is not only a name, but the position I occupy within these competing lines of belonging. Seen this way, what matters is not a single decision or a single refusal, but the lines that quietly structure what can be spoken, what can be changed, and what must remain stable. Some lines are followed without question because they feel like natural and normal. Others are maintained through silence, hesitation, or deferral. I find myself positioned across several such lines at once: biological lineage, parental care, ethics on filial piety, and legal inscription. Each line is coherent on its own, yet they do not converge in my lived position. Instead, they pull in different directions, producing a form of subjectivity that is not outside normativity, but generated through its internal contradictions. One name is covered either here or there on tombstone. Therefore, one fatherhood is announced, while the other is immediately hidden and is stay forever. If direction is what we're asked to follow, what will happen when multiple given directions, which are all in line with normative lines, are mutually exclusive? Queerness in this sense is not the effect of deviating from straight line, but the effect of being held within several straight lines that cannot be allied. So tell me, when two fathers standing opposite call the same daughter, which direction is she supposed to turn to? And supposed for whom? The end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yang. Thank you very much. All right. Difficult to move on from these straight away, but we will. And it's Amanda next. We'll have time to reflect afterwards. Amanda, hello.
Hello.
Whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. It is lovely to be here with you all today, and I will begin. The dark swifts will return. Part one. A swift is a bird, and the Spanish word for swift is vencejo. I moved to Madrid in June. It is the first place where I don't feel Mormon, the first place where I feel separate from the community that held me fast for most of my life. Although I left years earlier, there are always connections. Someone who knows about me, checks in on me, watches me. But here, no one knows. There's finally the confluence of time, place, distance, and circumstance that allows a clean break. And yet, part of me keeps returning. I cannot leave it behind. My research remains tangled in the world I'm so desperate to escape. As much as I want to do what my partner has done, what friends have done, to close it in the past and never look back, I can't. There's something I need to understand. How was I caught for so long? And the even more mysterious question, how was I finally able to leave? So I write. Every morning on my balcony, writing to insist on my presence here, now, outside the system, writing because I need to talk more than there are people willing to listen, writing to create something new, to dwell in the moments of escape. Because liberation is, I tell myself, the point. Yet before long, I notice the patterns. Even here, my writing begins to circle, tightening into an ever narrowing spiral of rumination, finding solace in repetition as I relitigate the same hurts, the same attempts at transformation, a rhythm that settles into a kind of security. I hear them before I see them. A high-pitched cry, piercing. I look up and the sky is swarming. There are so many swifts that it seems they might block out the sun. Have they been here this whole time? My fifth floor balcony sits at the nadir of their flight. They fly past close enough to touch, only to soar again above the rooftops. Their dark silhouettes cut across the morning light. As the sun rises, I no longer step onto my balcony just to write, but to write with the swifts. We come together, me from my bed of linen and down, they from their roosts between bricks, chimneys, and window wells. I bring my notebook and pen. They bring their flight and their cries. Part two. A flock of swifts is called a scream. A morning entry in my journal. Why is everyone so convinced that they're the ones with the answers, the strong ones, the faithful ones, as if I'm at this point because I was lazy, just didn't try hard enough? Do they really not get how fucking hard it is to walk away from the thing you've dedicated your life to realize you were duped, an idiot, complicit, brainwashed? God damn it. And I'm expected to just listen to them and keep anything possibly challenging or contentious or just different to myself. Because now what? I'm both the lost one and a threat to them? The one who broke the rules, the lost sheep they're seeking to find, but also have to plug their ears to? Fuck. A swift screams past, fueling my rage. I continue to scream through my pen, circling with them, returning to the same anger, these words like a refrain. I find myself looping again and again. Another swift, another scream. We will scream like this forever. A sudden sweep, dangerously close. A swift threads the needle between my railing and awning, its scream ecstatic in its execution of that impossible maneuver, and my scream fractures. I still hurl it outward, but part of it arcs back towards me. I'll never escape. Look at them. I miss my mom. I can't believe I'm free. I'm being so annoying. I'm never going back. They fly so fast. Now I look up, waiting, expectant of more disruptions their scream might bring. I watch them as they fly and scream at once. Yet they are not in unison, not really. They circle together for a time until without warning one breaks away. Sometimes another follows. Sometimes the entire scream scatters. And sometimes they find one another again. They fracture me, keep me open. I need them. Part 3. Volveran. They will return. The dying days of summer. The days shorten, but the heat somehow rises. The fecundity of the early season gives way to an overwhelming decay. Days slow. First the welcome ease of summer, terrazas and tintos, now lethargic from inertia. Everything is heavy. In this liminal, sultry space, I go for a walk, where I find a poem set into the pavement, words of which I know only a few. Volverán las oscuras golondrinas en tu balcón sus nidos a colgar, y otra vez con el ala a sus cristales jugando llamarán. The action comes first. Volverán, they will return. Only then the subject, the dark, oscuras, something. I don't know the word. More words in the poem offer clues. Wings, balconies, windows. Then I remember. Golondrinas means swallows. But why swallows when it's the swifts that are everywhere, their dark life forms filling the Madrid sky? Oh, they will return, which means they will leave. Back on my balcony, I search the sky, turn my ears towards the screams, but there's nothing. They're not going to leave. They're gone. But they come back, my friend Alethea laughs. That's the whole point of the poem. They return. They will return. But that word offers scant comfort because what does return even mean? They'll return to Madrid, to this street, to this balcony. But how will we find each other? Will these be the same birds? Will I be the same person? Also, I have no interest in returning to anything. Oh God, they're really gone. I want to see them again. I don't want to go back. How can I bear it? A whole universe stretches between now and the promised return. It is early summer again, having written through an autumn, a winter, a spring. Somehow I'm here, having traversed that infinite expanse. I hear their screams before I see them. For a moment, it's as though they never left. But that feeling fractures, regathering into something less settled, a return braided with everything that does not return. The swifts are different and the same. I am different and the same. We've not found each other again, not really, and yet of course we have. A persistent friction, falling apart while also needing to keep it together. I write, circling familiar lines until ruptured by a scream. Maybe my own, maybe the Swifts, maybe it doesn't matter whose, only that we never stop screaming. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda and Yang. And we now have some time, a lot of time now, between now and when we are due to end. But we'll just keep going as long as we want to keep going. So any responses that you may have for any of us would be welcome. And online too, you're very welcome. Please chip in. Oh, hang on. I've got to do this. I'll come to you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Neil. Just a reflection on everybody's work. Thank you very much for sharing that. Each one kind of captivated me. But I did want to just maybe hone in on the story about the Swifts. So I'm from South Africa. I'm an immigrant, and the swallows in South Africa, before they start migrating to Europe, they line the telephone wires, which no longer work in South Africa. So you very few places you have a plug-in telephone anymore. The infrastructure just doesn't work. But they line these telephone lines, and I've run past them so many times, and at stages in my misery and things, I felt so judged by them. To, sitting on these wires in their masses, they're going to take on this journey. And I always imagine them saying, oh, just suck it up. Look what we're about to do. So the other day, I ran and I saw swallows sitting on some other fences, and I felt not judged by them at all. So it's different space, same birds. They travel across on an annual thing, and I just wanted to ask a very silly question. Did you ever felt like the swifts had a message for you, or a feeling, or a judgment, or anything? And it's okay if not. I was just curious.
I love that, and that sense of them sitting and judging. And I think with swifts, what makes them different from swallows is that they never land. Unless they are roosting for the night, they don't have nests that are formed. They just make their way in cracks. And so rather than a judgment, what I felt from them is just force. There's no way for me to be near them without feeling like life and just movement. And so if there's judgment, maybe it's in the sitting still and not changing, but because they are constantly moving, it feels like instead what they've allowed is just this like almost, whether I want it or not, pulling me out with them, at least for a bit.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, everyone. That was really lovely. I was just interested, is your autoethnographic writing process different to your other writing practices? And if not, how are they the same? How are they the same and how are they different, your autoethnographic writing process and your other writing processes? That's to everyone, if that's okay.
Oh. Would you like to comment, Yang, on that question? Did you hear the question?
Yang, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge question. I'm still in process. I'm still trying to find what makes autoethnographic. For me, I'm quite new to this field, and one thing I noticed about my writing is somehow I find quite difficult in place I in the writing, and I find there's like it's a conflict, like it's an inner conflict between the present adult me and the child girlish me. And when I write stories about her, but I also find kind of like we're in the same body. I'm speaking for her. It even got me quite like ethical issues. Like, am I allowed to speak for her because it's her body, it's her emotions, it's her feelings, it's her story basically. So, do I get a right to speak for her at all? And is me handshaking with her, or it's a farewell? It's a doomed farewell for me to say goodbye to her. I think that's provoked into me a lot, and I don't have the answer for that, but I'm still working, like in process for that. That's autoethnography working on me, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks, Yang. Amanda, have you got any thoughts about that for you?
I mean, I want to kind of echo what I think Yang is saying in this. I mean, one, being new to this, considering work autoethnographic, but just with, I guess I want to say no. I don't think that my process is different in that. Yeah, actually, I guess that's my way of saying I don't have any thoughts beyond that, in that it feels like no, but maybe with autoethnography, when it comes into a sort of defense of this being autoethnography, it feels like there's something extra I'm trying to put on, but at the end of the day, I found out that it's maybe not necessarily was there all along, but I was already writing with that. And so finding how to, I think in my way, like trust that what I'm writing is autoethnographic.
Yeah. I think the only thing I want to add to what you've both said is how, for me, autoethnographic writing is the writing I find most difficult. So I avoid it. It's the hardest. It's the hardest to get to. I have to. So if I think about writing emails, I feel I can just do that without it costing much. but autoethnographic writing or writing in this way, it's well, Hélène Cixous, who's a French post-structuralist philosopher, writes about, and she's very influenced by psychoanalytic ideas, talks about how writing, and she's talking about, I kind of infer this kind of writing takes us close to what's unconscious. So think about kind of what's there, but we're not in touch with that, and that costs much more, that takes much more. So if I think about that, then it makes sense why writing like this is more difficult.
Yeah, I actually do
Thank
have
you.
one more thing to add, sorry, with that, which is that, like, yes, if we're looking at like writing an email or something like that, and with autoethnographic writing, it does seem like that maybe the process, it's like I find my with that, it's the getting started because of the fear of one, a blank page, but also like you were mentioning, Jonathan, with it being maybe tied to the unconscious, having no idea where it's going to end and if it's going to ruin your day.
Thank you. All right, Ali.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hello. Um, this is Ali. I don't think you can see me. Yang and Amanda, it was so nice to hear your pieces for a second time. It just like I feel like I got so much more out of them again. And Jonathan, thank you as well. And Yang, thanks for I'm mentioning ethics and ethical issues with it. And all three of you speak or in your writing write about people who are easily identifiable, right? Like you, Jonathan, you mentioned your daughter and Ken, and yeah, you all mentioned family members who, you know, if your name is on a piece of writing, that person will be able to be identified. So just curious what, yeah, if you've thought about that and within kind of ethics of your writing, how, yeah, just how you're working through that issue would be nice to hear from all of you.
Thank you. Amanda, how about, do you want to take this one first?
Sure. So I have been thinking about this a lot, and my writing really dwells most with, yeah, like you said, people easily identifiable, and where it will be the most is within my family, my parents in particular, perhaps my partner. And I've had to, at least as I'm grappling with it, where I am now, there are a couple things. There is for me, my parents are older, they're in their 80s, they will likely not read it. But more than that is the coming from that, the closed totalizing system of Mormonism. In order for us to maintain relationship, especially with my parents, there is a real trick of not looking where they could find answers they don't want. And sometimes that is if my mom reads writing of mine, for example, that depicts her in it, like I sent her something, and the response is, well, you're entitled to your opinion, and I realize this is your perspective, and it doesn't mean it's not an objective perspective. Which of course it's not, and she'll kind of go into that. And so I feel like within the relationships we have, as I'm struggling with this, part of it is trying to find the balance between my own voice, respect for my parents, but also recognizing that in that they do have their own systems in place to not look where they don't want to. And I don't quite know how to work that into a beautiful ethical framework yet. But that's where I'm looking. I'm looking really individually for these relationships, for systems within which we view the world, what feels, I don't know, yeah, I mean, ethical, fair, kind, without closing off.
Amanda. Yang?
Well, I think I can definitely echo with Amanda about the ethical stuff, and I think mine is a little bit complicated. It's not only because I mention names, my father's, my family's in the writing. It's also about I'm kind of like revealing a family secret in my writing. So I'm quite aware that the story they won't or they refuse to tell and to voice, but I'm here. I want to voice that in my writing. So I give a lot thinking about ethics talk with my supervisors about how I do that practically. Like, should I like be open with my parents about what I'm writing right now? And for me, like personally, at least so far, I choose to not to discuss with them. And I need to. I mean, practically stuff. My writing is in English, and my parents both Chinese, and they know nothing about English at all. I do think they probably won't have chance to read that, and probably they are not willing to read that, even if it's in Chinese. But still, I find it's quite ethically itching for me to speak for the stories involving them without their consent and permission. And I don't know the answer for that, but I do focus on the silence. Like the silence, the voice need to be somehow voiced. So if that's true, why not it's me, to be the one to voice that kind of part of the story? Yeah, I guess that's where I am right now.
Just to add, so I've had very similar dilemmas to Amanda and Yang, but with the writing for the book, I found I did talk to everybody or show everybody I wrote about. Well, I say that. The people who are in the cafes with me, whom I write about, I think about that. So, I mean, I kind of observe the baby, the sound of the baby in the background. I didn't think about that as being an ethical dilemma, but I think about it afterwards. Yeah, I feel like that's anyway. So it's more straightforward, I think, when I think about family members. That obviously, if I'm going to if I'm going to publish about them, writing about them, then I'll talk to them about it. I haven't always done. Did some writing about my brother a while back that I in the end I did talk to him about it, but I didn't to begin with, and then that was quite tricky. Yeah, I don't think that was good practice on my part. Yeah, sure. Kasia.
Hello, I'm Kasia, and Yang, I just wanted to tell you I really liked the detail in your story, the flowers, the fact that the youngest sweeps up the grave. You really invited us into this experience, into this story. I really liked it. And also, Jonathan, I really enjoyed the concept of chrononormative and going away from it in your story. And a question to you all, because the chrononormative concept, yesterday I actually wrote something that I knew I was going to write a few months before. In my dissertation, I had an opening poem which said, I don't remember the ending, I don't remember the beginning. But yesterday, I actually wrote the opening, I wrote the beginning, I wrote the ending. And it felt like this writing was there, ready for me. I just needed to get there. I just needed to be ready for it. And I just wanted to ask you guys, do you have moments like that in your writing? Jonathan, you've mentioned, but do you have moments like that when you know that it was there for all this time, but just, yeah, okay, that's my question.
I'll just pick up on that one first. I have more the experience of having written something and then wondering how it happened. And particularly for this, there's some gap between, like not straight away, but if I go back to it, I think, I mean, that's nothing to do with, it'll be nothing to do with the quality of the writing. It'll just be to do with, I said, in a sense, that just felt like, when I look back on it, feels like it just landed rather than the process. I lose the sense of the process. It just feels like I don't know. I don't. I don't. Not that I don't remember. I just don't understand how it happened. Shall I come to you, Yang, first?
Um, I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly, but recently I found my relation with the writing is like I know I'm gonna write something about that, and then I run the other way. I did that a lot recently. Like I know that's something important, that's something really provoke me, and I can do writing on that part, and I run really fast to another direction. I think my body also tells me, like, give me signals about what, like we already mentioned something like we with autoethnography we encounter our unconsciousness a lot. I think that's the writing. That's my body response to my writing and something I'm not aware of, or maybe I know that, but I'm trying to avoid. Yeah.
It's Yang. Amanda.
Or first of all, that's just that experience gives me chills to think about having the middle and not knowing the beginning and the end and having them come. Um, that's an experience I think I would love to have, but I find myself more maybe like what Jonathan described resonates to where the writing comes, and even if I were to tell you what I'd been working on, it's almost like I don't know, like I don't know, like I'm nowhere. Like it always feels almost like I'm nowhere, and yet in turning to the page, um, something emerges, and it's like there's a like where I am living right now is in a different register than where my writing is. It hasn't all merged for me.
Am I right? We've got a question online.
You have from Deepak.
I'm not going to read it first. I'll just read it aloud, shall I?
Yeah, unless he wants to say it.
Oh, yeah. Deepak, do you want to say it or?
Yeah, I don't know if you can
Okay.
hear me okay. So far there's no jets flying overhead, so you're okay. Um, in the writing, I sensed sadness and fragility and negotiation of time. I noticed sadness and resistance to being put and forced to conform relationally. I loved hearing the fuck and the frustration, the visceral and palpable. These feelings are what drive me, but I feel guilty. Does guilt come and go, and how do you feel with complicity outside of ethics? More about things like the face that we wish to show the world. I now have the feeling of Victor Frankenstein as if the writing is an organism that is created from an amalgamation of experiences from within, but as the socialized. It's a question to all of you.
Wow, thank you. There's a lot in there.
Yeah. It's that complicity. It's the feeling that what we're talking about other people and the impact that it has on us. I don't mean to move into the realms of ethics. I feel like ethics as a particular is a framework that is sometimes a little bit violent and oversimplified. What I'm getting at is this inner feeling that we have that we become someone that dissects and then puts together a new thing, a bit like what Frankenstein does, is to create this new thing which has emotions in various limbs and various parts of its body, but then starts to move as our writing does. And what does that how does that leave the writer? Where does that leave the writer?
If I'm understanding you right, you kind of that's something to do with how I guess this must be to do with some part of your writing experience about how kind of writing takes over.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it has a life of its own that almost feels outside. This may be taking it too far, but it seems out of your control to some extent. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like we may think that we have the ability to walk away, to run
Yeah.
in the opposite direction. But I wonder if that is futile. And it's I wonder if the tether is like an elastic band as opposed to a rope or something that we can disengage from.
Sure. Would either Amanda or Yang, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a very coherent one, but I'm going to keep this text and work with it because it really stirred up something, and I'm trying to not like emote too much. I do like, just rather than trying to tackle your whole incredible question, I think just that the feeling of guilt, of complicity as you're working through this is, as I know in my own writing, especially with such an on the nose example in my living of being in a system that was oppressive, and being complicit in that system while also, seeking liberation or whatever. I think that one of the things I am trying to grapple with is exactly what you said, which is, can I actually escape? Can I actually be outside the system? And I think the answer is no. And what does that mean? What does that mean for who I am? What does that mean within this writing sphere as I'm writing these things, as I'm positioning myself? And I don't think I mean this in a strict ethical realm either, but as I'm positioning myself as this person trying to break free, like I get to be the hero in this story that's like much more complex than that, and trying to wrestle with, I guess, who I'm creating myself to be in this writing. And yeah, and then just to say really bluntly, I feel guilty and ashamed and complicated about all of this all the time.
Yang, do you want to add anything?
Well, I can give you like simpler answer about the runaway part. It is free tale. Otherwise, I won't sitting here talking to you. It's I think I mean I think it's quite different. Writing somehow provide us a different dimension or space that you think you can run away from reality. So for example, in my writing, I talk about the tombstone. After that conversation, I barely no, I didn't like revisit the tombstone, the cemetery at all. But somehow I cannot get rid of my writing. It's the cemetery that I created for myself in my writing, and I need to sit with two different tombstones and staring at my names, that kind of stuff. And I'm talking to the dead, and I'm also talking to the living, and I'm also talking to myself. I think that's the power of the writing. And also, you mentioned something about guilty, and I echo with Amanda. I think it's not it doesn't come and go. It's always gonna be something you carry with you, write with, and it's kind of for me like inspiration or motivation for me to keep writing, because you need to. I don't know about others, but writing give me some kind of fantasy. Like if I'm the writer, if I'm holding the pen, I somehow got a power to polish my version of my story. But in the end, you find it's quite relief if you are not in that power position. If the writing get the power and you're just there, holding your pens and doing the writing, but it's also kind of a relief. It's like a relief from your responsibility, your sadness, your miserable life, whatever it is. It's like emotional burden. It's like you and your writing somehow manage to reach a peace and agreement. So you do your part, I'm gonna do my part, and we're gonna be a partner in a way. Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Part
really
of the
helpful.
question, thanks, Yang. The part of the question that stayed with me, Deepak, is how I have the sense of always being implicit with my privilege, and that I have to find ways. I just have to find ways to pay attention to that. I can never get out of that. It's always part of what I bring to the page in all kinds of ways. So I have to find ways to write with that, and that's all I can do. That's the concept of complicity. That's the bit that stayed with me from your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Ken.
I don't know if this is going to be a question. This is a great panel, and I'm really grateful for everyone for their contributions. And the discussion now is also terrific. I was looking at the title of this panel, and it's Beyond Words, which I think is interesting. Jonathan mentioned Helena Sisu just now, and I know it's kind of apocryphal, but one of the things she says, what else is there to do but write? And that has always infected me. I find myself writing. I like your question just now about kinds of writing also. I mean, for example, I do a lot of writing which is diaristic. It's note forms. It's about journals. I don't ever think of my children will inherit boxes and boxes and boxes of diaries and notes that I've written. So I think with the kind of post-human idea, what does writing do? And that seems to be really, really important. But then we have to ask, what kind of writing are we talking about here? I love the circulation of the Swifts. I love their appearances, and I loved what you said about seeing them on the lines, because when I see the swallows on the lines in England, it's sadness, because it's winter's on the way. Yeah, they're going back to Africa. I think it's just I'm just sort of very highly charged by listening to what you all have to say, and I appreciate what people are saying. I think it's hugely important to write. I don't think you should stop writing, Jonathan. Because I think, the richness is in this conversation, the contributions that people are making here at the conference. It's hugely important. So, yeah, that's all I'm saying. I just wanted to share that with you because it's been a great to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. We maybe have time for one more, if anybody would like.
Just offer the unpopular reflection. So, Neil again, and Amanda, and Deepak's question, lifting out the profanities, like the word fuck. I use it quite a lot in my thesis. I'm busy writing, and the supervisor asked me out of kindness, you use it quite a lot, or you will be prompted around it. And for me, I use it as a writing device because there's so much that I can't put on the page that will just not be ethically acceptable. And therefore, that's then a bit of a bravery. But I also think that way. And kind of two of my favorite words ever in the world is fuck off. Like, so, because that's what happens in my head when I tie myself in knots. So just a minute reflection, Amanda, is it a writing device? Is it what's going on in your brain? Just,
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is mostly, I would want to say, what's going on in my brain. But for me in particular, I think I can't escape the fact that I also came from an organization from a growing up where that would have been like the worst thing you could possibly say. So there is an element that besides that is what's going through my mind. It is one of my favorite words. It no longer feels particularly taboo for me to say it. But as I write, I am also always, it's at least in some sense, recognizing that this will be read. It is impossible for my reader to ever be fully separate from where I came from. And so there is a part of it that is maybe like a child trying to shock in the use of that word.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And thank you to everybody who's been here and been part of this event with us and in the room and online. And thank you especially to Amanda and Yang for your work and your thoughts in response to all the questions. And we have to end and go and get coffee or whatever we're going to do before the next session. Thank you all very much indeed.